Imagine this. You're standing in a silent desert as night settles in, the last warmth of sunlight fading from the sand beneath your boots, the air cooling fast, and a breeze moving across the dunes like it's carrying a secret. Maybe it is, because beneath your feet lies a forgotten story, not the one taught in textbooks, but one that might have started long before kings and kingdoms. We've all heard the accepted version, the one that says the Great Pyramids were built by powerful rulers thousands of years ago during the height of Egypt, as early age. But what if that's just the final chapter, not the beginning? What if those massive structures were already standing long before the first chisel etched symbols into stone? We're used to imagining linen-clad workers pulling stones under the harsh sun, but picture something far older. In Egypt, before deserts, when the landscape was green, the Nile ran wide, and forests dotted the riverside. An Egypt that existed while ice still gripped parts of the world, a time nearly erased from memory. When some looked closer at the Giza Plateau, they began to question the official story. Weathered stone showed signs of something other than wind, not carving from time, but from water, and not the kind that belongs in a dry desert where it hasn't rained like that in ages. These grooves and scars suggest that what we re-seeing may have survived long past its original builders, passed down, readopted, then re-explained through a much younger lens. That possibility raises a deeper question. If these stones really are older than we think, then so is everything we believe about how civilization began. We're told history starts when writing starts, when cities rise and farming begins. But what if people were building wonders before they ever wrote them down? There is proof out there, places where stone circles and intricate carvings exist from a time we thought still belonged to hunter-gatherers. That doesn't mean the pyramids are definitely older, but it does mean ancient people were capable of far more than we've credited them for. The simplicity of the traditional tale is comforting. Kings, temples, beautiful timelines we can label in neat rows, but that's not how real history works. It's uneven. It's riddled with gaps. It hides more than it reveals. When you stand next to the Great Pyramid, place your hand on the stone. You're not just touching history, you're touching mystery. That block has stood through storms, earthquakes, time itself. It may have been ancient when ancient stories were first told. A surprising discovery once revealed a fully intact ship buried deep within Egypt's desert, hundreds of miles from any coastline. A reminder that the sands hold secrets we never expect. So, if a ship can last a couple thousand years in the middle of nowhere, what else might be buried deeper? What if even the pyramid's base rests on something far older, something we've never seen? That's the trail we're following, one made not of answers but of questions that refuse to go away. And if you're listening right now, under the night sky wherever you are, just know, you're not the only one wondering. If you've only ever seen Egypt through postcards or the windows of a tour bus baking in midsummer heat, it's easy to believe this land was always bone dry, an endless horizon of sand and sun-beaten stone. But if you step closer to the Great Sphinx and take a real, careful look, you'll notice something most people miss. Behind that massive lion-shaped body and weathered human face lies a carved-out enclosure in the ground, cut straight into the limestone bedrock, and the walls inside aren't smooth or neatly chiseled. They're reshaped with deep curves and vertical grooves that run down the stone like flowing water once did. These aren't the work of gritty desert wind or blowing sand. They ripple and soften at the edges, more like fingers dragging through damp clay. That's the defining difference. Wind erosion scrapes sideways, harsh and slicing, but rainwater moves differently, falling vertically, rounding and folding everything it touches over time. And this part of the Sphinx tells a story of rain. Lots of it. The kind of rain that hasn't touched this land in many thousands of years. Which raises a question no textbook is eager to answer. What if this monument is far older than we've been told? What if it was carved not in a desert, but in a land of rivers, ponds, and storms, when grass grew where sand now swirls, and when builders worked under skies heavy with rain instead of dry haze? The usual explanation places this monument neatly alongside nearby structures, chalking it up to a well-known emperor. and linking it to neighboring temples carved with his likeness. The style, the proximity, the logic, it's supposed to tie everything in a bow. But without writing on stone to date it directly, all those ties can quickly unravel. What you are left with is a contest between the surface of the stone and the stories we tell about it, marks etched by nature versus labels pinned on by tradition. This conundrum doesn't end with the Sphinx either. Temples nearby, shaped from stone blocks so massive and clean-cut they seem almost poured into place, show erosion even more intense. Some blocks have rounded edges like they lived through generations of storms no one remembers. To understand how this could be, travel back in your mind to a time more than 12,000 years ago when Earth's climate shifted fast. Ice was melting, oceans rising, the Sahara blooming with lakes and green fields, and monsoons stretched far north, turning today's deserts into seasonal lands full of water and life. Picture standing at the foot of what we now call the Sphinx, but instead of dry heat and tourists, you're standing in cool air that smells like rain-soaked soil with puddles dotting the low slopes and trees nearby, catching early morning mist. There were no kings, no empires, just a people carving great shapes from bedrock, for reasons now lost in time. And if a powerful rainstorm in modern times could suddenly bring dried-up valleys back to life, it's no stretch to imagine what thousands of years of consistent rainfall could do. Which brings us to something no history book wants to ask too loudly. If this structure predates the rulers we credit it to, then maybe what we call Egypt Akhesorn beginning was actually built on foundations that already stood. Maybe the rulers we remember didn't build everything from the ground up, but inherited monuments that came before. Maybe they reshaped them, celebrated them, and claimed them, but didn't start the story. And if that's true, what else lies buried in the sands of the past, quietly challenging everything we thought we knew? Stand at the base of the Great Pyramid and let it sink in. Not the clean white mountaintop version from polished illustrations, but the real thing, stripped down to its raw limestone core, weathered and battered by time. Up close, something doesn't quite add up. Some blocks line up so tightly you couldn't slip a blade between them, while others are rough, uneven, almost out of place. It's as if different teams with different tools took turns. One set masterful, the other just trying to make it fit. The official story is that this mountain of stone was built by thousands of workers using copper tools, wooden sledges, and raw effort, stacking limestone cut nearby, while hauling granite from far away. And yes, much of that is likely true, at least when it comes to the limestone. But granite is a whole different game, far harder and far less forgiving. In the pyramid's interior, towering beams made from this dense rock weigh dozens of tons and are perfectly cut, perfectly placed, aligned like precision parts in a machine. Some of these granite blocks span entire ceilings. In the modern age, such feats would need engineered support systems, yet we were told these were moved with ropes and sand ramps. Then there are the marks that on a T match up. Bored holes that spiral downward into solid granite, cuts that curve just like fast rotary tools would make today. Experiments have shown you can shape granite slowly with abrasives and soft metal tubing, but the results aren't quite the same. So what does that mean? Maybe the builders had methods we forgot, not futuristic gadgets, just clever, lost techniques that no longer had a reason to be passed down. Or maybe they borrowed the stone itself, reused it from an older foundation, along with bits of ancient craftsmanship that even they couldn't fully imitate. Walk the edges of old quarries nearby, and you'll find hints of something older. Blocks partly shaped, scoop marks slicing curves into rock faces, as if someone once knew how to cut away stone like butter. All across the land, older stones have been lifted into newer temples, repurposed, the past wrapped in fresh symbols. Sometimes inscriptions layer over older ones. Sometimes the stone carries no name at all, just shape and age. A painted symbol inside the pyramid has long been used as proof of who built it, but even that mark has been questioned. Its discovery, its timing, the intent, all unclear. So the question rises again. What if this wasn't Khufu's project from the start? What if he simply claimed it, stamped it, called it his, the way kings often do? We've seen that story repeat. New empires rising on top of older ruins, sacred sites layered with history. Maybe this pyramid isn't a beginning, but a survival. Every generation stands before it and asks the same thing. How could this have been made? No answer has ever settled the debate. Maybe that's part of the design. Built not just to amaze, but to outlast memory itself. Because if rain, wind, kingdoms, and silence couldn't erase it, maybe the message isn't about how they built it, but that it still stands at all. Long before words lived on parchment, long before stories were carved in temples, someone shaped these stones. They said something without a sound, something we're still trying to remember. So the next time you see its jagged silhouette against the sky, don't just ask how. Ask when. Ask who came before, and what else still waits in the silence beneath the sand.